If religion is supposed to be a force for good, guiding morality, building communities, comforting people in times of pain, why has it also left behind such a long trail of harm? This is not a question that comes from hostility, but from observation. If religion is meant to be humanity's moral compass, shouldn't we expect societies with deeper religious devotion to flourish with peace, kindness, and justice? Yet the historical record and even present-day reality tell us a very different story. Religion has indeed inspired art, music, and charity, but it has also inspired crusades, inquisitions, witch hunts, suicide bombings, and policies that still strip people of basic freedoms. To ask why is not to dismiss the good, it's to hold religion accountable to its own claims. One of the first things to recognize is that religion often creates a sharp divide between insiders and outsiders. Belief systems are rarely content with live and let live. They declare ultimate truths, and by doing so, inevitably label others as wrong, misguided, or dangerous. When a group believes it has a direct line to ultimate truth, it becomes easier to justify silencing or even harming those who don't share it. This insider-outsider dynamic has fueled centuries of violence: the Crusades against Muslims, the 30 Years' War between Catholics and Protestants, or the endless sectarian conflicts in regions where rival groups claim to follow the same God, but with slightly different rituals. But this harm isn't only in the past. Even today, religious divisions are a driving factor in global conflicts. In Northern Ireland, the memory of Protestant-Catholic tensions still lingers. In the Middle East, sectarian rivalries fuel instability. Across the globe, we see religiously motivated violence, whether it's Buddhist extremists in Myanmar targeting Rohingya Muslims, or Islamist groups terrorizing civilians in the name of jihad. These conflicts rarely start only from religion, but religion often magnifies them, providing justification and emotional fuel that politics alone could not ignite. If religion were simply about private comfort, none of this would be necessary. But religion rarely stays private. It seeps into laws, shapes education, and dictates how societies handle issues of gender, sexuality, healthcare, and freedom of expression. For example, in many countries, religious influence has blocked access to contraception, restricted abortion rights, and criminalized homosexuality. These aren't abstract debates. They're policies that directly harm millions of lives. When religious doctrine dictates law, personal freedom becomes collateral damage. Consider how religion approaches sexuality. Instead of fostering healthy, informed, and compassionate conversations, many traditions frame sexuality in terms of purity, sin, and shame. Young people raised in such environments often internalize guilt that follows them for life. Psychological studies show higher rates of anxiety, depression, and sexual dysfunction among people who were taught their natural desires are sinful. What should have been an opportunity for openness and self-understanding becomes a burden of secrecy and repression. Even when religion claims to be charitable, the picture is complicated. It's true that religious institutions run hospitals, schools, and food banks, but these services often come with strings attached: evangelism, conditions on who receives help, or restrictions based on religious doctrine. For example, some church-run hospitals refuse to perform life-saving procedures like abortions, even when the mother's life is at risk. Some religious charities reject funding programs that distribute condoms, worsening the spread of HIV. What looks like charity on the surface often doubles as a tool for control. Another layer of harm lies in the way religion discourages critical thinking. Faith is often praised as a virtue, but at its core, faith is belief without evidence. When people are encouraged to accept claims without question, they become vulnerable to manipulation. Leaders can wield this unquestioning loyalty to enrich themselves or entrench their power. History offers countless examples, from medieval popes selling indulgences to modern-day televangelists, exploiting followers for donations. The pattern is consistent. When critical inquiry is replaced by obedience to authority, abuse thrives. We can also examine the way religion interacts with science. While many believers reconcile their faith with scientific progress, institutions have often resisted discoveries that threaten their doctrines. The Catholic Church once silenced Galileo for suggesting the Earth revolves around the sun. More recently, creationist movements continue to undermine science education, pushing young people to reject evolution in favor of literal interpretations of ancient texts. These efforts don't just distort understanding, they weaken society's ability to confront real problems like climate change or pandemics, where science and evidence should guide our actions. Perhaps one of the most under-discussed harms is how religion normalizes suffering. Many traditions teach that suffering has a divine purpose, that pain is a test, punishment, or preparation for a better afterlife. While this may provide comfort in moments of tragedy, it can also discourage people from addressing systemic problems. If poverty is framed as part of God's plan, why fight to eliminate it? If illness is seen as a trial of faith, why invest in healthcare? By spiritualizing suffering, religion can subtly reinforce inequality and delay real solutions. Take the example of slavery. For centuries, religious leaders justified slavery with scripture. Passages in both the Old and New Testament were interpreted as divine approval of human ownership. Abolition movements eventually challenged this, but the fact that religion could bless such an atrocity for so long shows how malleable divine will becomes when aligned with social interests. Today, similar arguments are made about gender inequality or LGBTQ rights. When people claim God's design as a reason to deny equality, they are echoing the same logic once used to defend slavery. Even when religion doesn't directly cause harm, it often enables harmful power structures. In many societies, clerics, priests, or imams serve as gatekeepers to social legitimacy. Political leaders align themselves with religion to gain authority, and in return, religious leaders enjoy protection and influence. This entanglement creates a cycle where questioning religion feels like questioning the very foundation of society. And when criticism is silenced, abuse festers. Scandals of child abuse within religious institutions, for example, often went unchecked for decades precisely because people were too afraid to challenge religious authority. Psychologically, religion can provide comfort, but it can also create dependency. Believers are taught that ultimate answers lie outside themselves, that morality, purpose, and even forgiveness come from an external power. This dependence can stunt personal growth, discouraging people from developing inner resilience or taking full responsibility for their actions. Studies have shown that highly religious communities sometimes report lower levels of innovation and slower adaptation to change. In a world that demands critical thinking and creativity, this dependence can be costly. Of course, not every harm comes from violence or politics. Religion also impacts how individuals navigate personal life. Think about the countless people who stay in abusive marriages because their faith forbids divorce, or LGBTQ individuals who hide their true selves to avoid condemnation from their religious families, or women in conservative societies denied education because their religion dictates subservience. These aren't isolated tragedies. They are systemic patterns created and sustained by religious doctrine. What makes religion especially complex is that it often claims credit for values that exist independently. Morality, empathy, compassion, these traits are not exclusive to religious people. Anthropologists studying early human societies found cooperation and fairness long before organized religion. Secular societies today often outperform religious ones on measures of equality, safety, and well-being. Scandinavian countries, with low levels of religious belief, consistently rank among the happiest, healthiest, and most just in the world. This suggests that goodness doesn't come from religion, it comes from humanity itself. Yet religion still insists on being the sole authority on morality, and this insistence creates conflict. When people question doctrine, they're often branded as immoral or dangerous. Dissent becomes heresy. This suppression of free thought is perhaps the deepest harm. It robs individuals of the right to explore, to question, to seek truth on their own terms. The progress humanity has made in human rights, science, philosophy, has often come in spite of religion, not because of it. None of this is to say that religious individuals cannot be kind, generous, or ethical. They absolutely can and often are. The problem lies not with individual believers, but with the structure of religion itself. A system that claims divine authority, demands obedience, and divides the world into saved and damned, will inevitably produce harm. It cannot help but do so, because its foundation is built on exclusion and unquestionable power. The philosopher Bertrand Russell once remarked that the good we attribute to religion is not unique to it, but the harm is. Charity, kindness, and community can thrive without religion, but crusades, inquisitions, and holy wars cannot. That distinction matters. If religion is so good, why does it so consistently leave behind destruction? The answer may be that the good comes from us, and the harm comes from the system that insists it speaks for something beyond.